All right, everybody, antique motorcycle revival here, and we got the 45 today, the old trusty 45, 1942 WLA. A little bit on the WLAs really quick. This is a 45 cubic inch, or if you're into the CC, about 750 cc motorcycle. They called it the Liberator. They made them, they were green, made them for World War II by the thousands. That's how come there's so many on the road today. Parts, they said they made as many parts to build that same number of bikes again, which I think was like 60,000 or something. So it's way up there, I don't remember exact number. But a lot of parts, and so it's enabled us to be able to put them together. This bike has been what they call civilianized in a way. It's of course none of the green, and it has the the regular stuff on it. I did put the Army bracket on there. They're real strong, and I wanted that in case I go on a long trip. I'm on someday thinking about going on a long trip. I've actually applied for cross country cannonball, and I haven't heard back from them, but I put that on there, and then I just mounted the bags. They have a bracket here on the side for that, and then just recently put the toolbox on it and stuff. I've been adding things along a little bit here and there. The bike has really been running good lately. I've not had any problems, probably running as well as it ever has. I'm not going to do a whole lot today with we're going to look at a few things and check them, but like for instance the points and the timing and stuff like that, there's really no need because in this service, because first kick, it starts on first kick just every time, and so nothing can be off too far if that's the case. Today we're going to look at adjusting the valves. I have already adjusted the front valves, already did that. These valves that are in this motor are they're a little bit well, they're aftermarket, so they're wearing, and I've had to adjust them a lot more than I normally would. What I did, I got a set of valves. This is what I would use. You can buy them, they're not that expensive, but you can buy, where this was a wartime motorcycle, World War II, you can buy parts. And I've got these valves. This is an original valve, and how you know they've got a place here that you can put a screwdriver in so that you can seat it with a screwdriver. Pretty neat little setup. This is an from the Army issue valve for one of these that's still in. It's called a cosmoline. It's a kind of like a wax, oily wax type stuff. It comes off with soap and water, hot soap and water, but this one is still wrapped in that from World War II. And I got the paper over there that it was in and stuff. Pretty neat stuff. And so just want to show you, this is what a real valve looks like. The problem with aftermarket valves, I wouldn't want to put anything aftermarket inside the motor really, because they just don't make the stuff. They don't have the steel and stuff, and I've said this before, most of it comes from China and stuff, and there's a few American companies that make some decent stuff, but as far as the valves go, I prefer the originals. But these, I'm gonna let them wear. I've been adjusting them along the way. I put 8,000 miles on this motorcycle as of now, and I'm letting them wear down. They seem to have wore down now to the place where they're not needing the adjustment quite as much, but they have had to be adjusted quite a bit over the years. And so I'm going to take the wrench. I'm going to show you how this works. A few service tips. We're going to look at the valves today. We're going to adjust a couple of them. I think I may have to do a little trick on one of them because they are so wore down. I don't know that if they will adjust if they're too tight. So we're going to do that. We're going to look at both chains. We're going to look at the rear chain and the primary chain as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking this thing apart. I tighten these down because they're bad to leak, and I'm going to show you today what I have done and figured out to do to keep them from leaking anymore on me. I've got them now to where they're pretty dry, but there is a trick that you can use to prevent that. And by the way, this tool that I have, especially for Harley Davidson 45s, you can see that it's thin, and the way that it's made, it will get in there. You see that? A regular wrench will not fit in there. It hits the cylinders and stuff, and it's just very difficult to do. So you'll need one of these. If you're going to mess around with a 45, you're going to want one of these wrenches for the tappet covers here, they call it. That one's spinning on me, and that's a little bit of sometimes what you run into when you do what I have done. I'm going the wrong way with these. I add a gasket sort of, and I'll show you, and it works really well. They changed these covers a little later on. I think it's in the late 40s. They give an option, a different type. And it was like an O-ring type deal that worked a lot better. But this is the old style original that they run for years and years, and they were known to leak sometimes. You got to remember on these old motorcycles, I get comments on I did a video, why do Harley Davidsons leak? And of course somebody wants to tell me why they're you know, 2015 Honda or something like that don't leak. Folks, this motorcycle to date is 82 years old, and the technology back then was a lot different. They were on top of their game for the day. They built a motorcycle that was the most used in World War II. It's a low compression, very dependable motorcycle, would run on the bad gas that they had in Europe at the time, and they're just a really cool motorcycle. But you know, the technology is way different. You don't do none of the stuff on that newer Harley over there that you do on this one. And if you don't like working on them and fooling with them and learning about them, then my advice is get a newer one, and you won't have to fool with that. But I like doing it. They require a lot different servicing. My newer Harley, I've got a 103 over there with a stage 1 on it, and I just crossed 45,000 miles on that motorcycle. I put 41,000 of them on there, having done nothing but put a battery, not the other day, a 6-year-old battery I replaced, and then changed oil and stuff. I mean, just basic stuff, tires, brakes, oil, that's it. But these older ones, they require, you know, a lot more servicing, a lot more care, and I'm gonna go over just a couple of things today that we do. So how you know which valve is which and how they go, and I'll kind of give you the high point of this. This is, just take a look at it and you'll see it this way. This is the intake, that's the carburetor, right? This is the intake, so this is the intake side of your valve. This is a flat head engine, side valve they call it. So you have an intake valve here, exhaust valve here, exhaust valve here, intake valve here, okay? They go on 2 different measurements when you're micing them, okay? And I want to show you just a little bit how this is set up and how it works. Take a look at this block. This is your lifter, cam roller, and they're a roller lifts. Back in the day, pretty neat. And how they work, this you know, this is, imagine this is sitting in there. This would be this one here, and the cam is going across. It lifts it like that, you know, it goes across the roller like so. And here, the valve and the clearance is adjusted. That's the lock nut, and your push rod sets, or your valve rather in this case, your valve just sets directly on that. And so that's how you adjust it. You just move this back and adjust it down. And you want a good number. I think it's a little bit loose, but a good number on it is you want 7 thousandths on the exhaust, 5 on the intake, give or take. Some people's 4 and 6. I do 5 and 7. I give them just a little bit extra. These motors get hot. I mean, they get real hot. They get like real hot, 300 and like, I don't know, something. They get hot. And so we're gonna look at this. What I do is you watch this, you can watch this as it comes off the cam here and goes down. See how it goes? It's going down right there. I just move it just a little bit extra, and I know it's loose. See, I can feel that. And then intake side. That one's going to be fine. Now this one, it's okay too. You can see where I did it. There are 7 thousandths, 5 thousandths of clearance there. Now, what I have done in the past to keep these, and I'm going to dry these up a little bit, and just to try to help them out. I'm really glad I didn't have to. What I have done, believe it or not, is I had one of these aftermarket valves just would not adjust. It got tight here, and I had went all the way down on my adjustment. I couldn't go no more. So, crazy as this sounds, I got a screwdriver and lifted this valve up off of this. So watch this over here. I lifted the valve like so. You know, if you was to just lift that up off of there like that, okay, like that. Lifted it up off there. And I put a piece of sand. First, I tucked all of the inside of this all the way around with a small paper, like paper towels, so I wouldn't get anything in there. And I took this sandpaper like this and sanded that old valve down a little bit to where I had some clearance. I did that on this exhaust valve probably 6 months ago. I checked it earlier today. It's still got enough clearance now to this day. You say, well, you might have ruined the valve when you do that or whatever. Listen, them aftermarket valves are not going back in there anyway, so it doesn't make any difference to me. I will put the original stuff back on it. That stuff is just, you know, the nicest way in the world to put it is junk. And so, I'm just checking that. Something I hadn't done in a little while was check these valves, and I'm just cleaning a little bit of this oil off of here. And getting them straightened up here just a little bit. I'll show you how this outfit works. So what I do when I'm putting these blocks back on, I've got these tight. What I have done in the past is let me show you this. Right here is a little small flange. Once you take a look at this, you'll see a flange right there. This, of course, this one is broken, but this is what there's a gasket just like this that goes around inside there. Now, you don't have to go through everything to take that. I've heard people taking everything apart. You don't have to do all that. You can take a screwdriver, lift up, if you was to not have one, it's pouring, and lift up on the valve, cram that O-ring in there while you got it lifted up, let it go back down, and just slide it up over it, okay? What the problem I was having is that some of these were leaking. And so what I did was I took and bought a bunch of these, and I took a knife and I cut them, okay, put into a thin layer. You say, well, maybe you can use an O-ring. Can't use an O-ring. They're too thick. They won't slide down over it. So cut these thin like this, and what it does is it gives a little bit of, because that thing tapers as it goes down, tight and snugs down on that, it gives it a little bit more distance. If I was guessing, I would say the older gaskets that you got was thicker and wider. And so I just add a little bit to it this way, lift up the valve, slide that in there, put that over top of it, and mine, they stop leaking. And no more problems out of them. And so, anyway, I want to show you a little bit about what I do. This is my extra one in case I need one at some point. And then on these, when you go to tighten them down, what you want to do is you want to tighten the back one first, then this one. You want to tighten the back one here and then this one, and I'll show you why. because when you go down on this here, let me get this started for you. I'll slide this thing down and where I have, there we go, okay. That extra gasket though, when you put that on there, sometimes makes it a little bit snug, the whole process. But I mean, it's still better than pouring oil, if you ask me. And so the reason I do that, see, I'm able to hold this up, and it gives me more clearance right there to be able to tighten them up. And then I can do the front one last, because I don't need as much clearance on that one as I would, you know, normally. So. Now I snug these down really tight too. Try to hold that top a little bit and keep it from turning. Okay, now what I'm going to want to do here, I put a little bit of extra on them, folks, is what I do. So they've got plenty of, watch me cheat here a little bit. Like so, okay? Then this one can go on last without any problems, usually. So, you can see, you can hear that gasket in there where I add that little strip extra on that gasket. It helps it to seal good, but it just makes them snug going together, but it keeps everything nice and dry and tidy and all that. And you don't have to take the whole motor apart just to, you know, fix something like that either. So, helps that problem out. I kind of thought this thing would be fairly close on everything, because it's running too good not to be. I live in the mountains of Kentucky, and we've got hills. And I'll tell you, when you're on a 45, a low compression 45 like this, then it's going to have a tendency to hit those hills and bog down a lot. And this one's just not been doing that near as bad. It'll bog a little bit, but I never have come out third on most of my inclines, even on the highway. So running really good, and I'm really stoked about that. I've been fine tuning and just getting some of this oil off here, and I kind of see if I, you know, need to make any corrections here. And so there you are on the valves. Just did that check on them, and they're all got the good clearance in them. The reason that you want a little bit of clearance in that valve is because when metal gets hot, especially as hot as this, it expands. And when it expands, what it'll do, it'll tighten up everything. And so you just want a little bit of room for that whenever you're going. Now, the second thing that I wanted to do today, and we're just doing a two-part maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance we could go over with this one, a lot of grease fittings. And if you're starting on a 45, I highly suggest you buy the book. Highly suggest it. I've got a video, and one of the very first videos that I did on how to find parts for your antique Harley Davidson. Check that video out, and you'll see that book that I'm talking about in there. And very helpful, but all the grease points is in there, how often and everything. I change my oils this side, gas on the other side. I change my oil on this motorcycle no more than about 800 miles. I hit the 800 mile mark, and I'm going to get some oil for it. And they don't have oil filters, folks. They get hot. They run about probably 40 or 50% hotter than an average motorcycle, and they're steel and everything, and they need oil more. I think oil changes, no oil filters. So I do that about every 800 miles. Now, the next thing we're going to do is look at our chains. I want to show you a little bit about this. I got my little jack here to get the wheel up. I'll show you how I do this, and come over here to this side. It's my lovely wife. My advantage over you all right now is I get to look at her and you don't. So anyway, I'm thankful for her. But what I do is I will shift this thing into third, just higher gear, a little bit easier. And because I turn the motor, I don't take the plugs out and all that. If you did take the plugs out, it would be easier to do what I'm about to do. But this is the primary chain. This is your inspection cover, okay? On this primary cover here, this is an original one, by the way, that I found, and I had it painted. But on this primary cover, this is just a cover. I mean, it doesn't. You can see in there, it doesn't run in oil or anything. And right there, if you look inside, there's that little oiler that I was talking about when I talked about does why do Harley Davidsons leak oil in a couple of videos back. Well, that's the oiler for this chain. And then there's an oiler that goes on the back chain. And so what I'm going to do is inspect these chains for the amount of slack in them. Now, what's interesting about this, and different, way different from newer motorcycles, is all this stuff is tied together. You can't just like adjust one chain. And if you adjust anything, if you adjust this chain or here, if you adjust the primary, it affects everything, okay? You can get by with adjusting the rear wheel by itself, but if you adjust the primary chain, everything changes. Let me give you an example. This is your transmission right here, okay? This is your clutch. This is your clutch inspection. You can adjust your clutch right here, not inspection really, but an adjustment. And there's 3 bolts under there. If you loosen those bolts, if you come over here, I'm going to show you this. There is a bolt right there. That bolt is tied into the frame. See it there? It's tied into the frame in a cut-like situation, where that if you tighten that, it pulls the transmission back. Well, what you're going to want to do is, if you adjust this chain, you have to loosen those 3 transmission bolts, and you actually pull your transmission back in order to adjust this chain, the primary chain. Well, if you do that, okay, what else is tied to it? Well, your shifter is tied to it on these motorcycles. It goes all the way back to the transmission. Your rear chain is tied to the other side of the transmission. It goes back this way. So if you pull back, watch this. If you pull back on this transmission and pull it back so you're tightening this chain a little bit, you also have to set the linkage on the transmission, and you have to set the chain. Your rear chain will get slack all of a sudden. So really quick, I'm gonna go over this and kind of show you what that looks like. The other thing too is that these baskets on these, and I'm gonna get one of them to show you. I want you to look at this. If I can get one out without too much trouble. This is what this basket looks like. This is your clutch basket, okay? These things are riveted in right here. They are not perfectly symmetrical, okay? Not only that, but it has, your shaft on the transmission has roller bearings. It has a little bit of slack. And then on top of that, this is not perfectly symmetrical. I mean, this is 1940s, everybody. It's a different time, okay? And so you have to check for these chains and run them all the way around, completely around one time, checking them little at a time, because on the front chain and on the rear chain, there will be a tight spot, and that's where you want to adjust your chain from, is the tight spot. And so I want to show you a little bit about how that works here. I'm going to feel this chain, take my back wheel, and just move it. I'm moving it a little bit at a time here. See there? Now come here and look here how much already. That is a little bit much. See, tighter right there. That's the loose spot. Loose spot. Loose. I can smell the gas being pulled into the carb. Right there's a tight spot. That's the tightest spot. Now look here. See? So I probably won't adjust this chain right now. It's not loose enough that it's going to be chattering or hitting anything. And you do want some play in this. You don't want this chain to be like streaming snug or anything like that. You want a little bit of play. These have roller bearings in the transmissions. You don't want to over tighten all of that. The basket here has little roller bearings that runs in that, and you just you don't want to squeeze on all of that stuff all the time. And then over here on the other side, this chain it's too loose. See how loose it is there? Now, what I want to do with this one, I can go ahead and save myself a little bit of, it's easier to do because I can turn it in neutral. So what I want to do here is find the loose spot. I can kind of watch it. Right there. You can see it. Kind of. See, it's too loose. This one is. It's way too loose. See there? Right there is one of the snug, a little bit more of a snug spot. I've got a set of bags on this bike, and so what I'm gonna do is make a quick job out of this. It's not super difficult to tighten this chain. Let me get a couple of some tools here to work with. 7/16, 3/4, 7.5. I'll show you how quickly that you can actually do this. This is a 3/4. This is right here. If you can see this, this is your bolt that goes all the way through. You know, for your sprocket there, and this is the this is your brake hub bolt, the big one. And so this 3/4 fits this one, and you can loosen that up. Take it off even, but you can loosen this. It's locked in on the other side. I'll show you in just a minute how it works. Let me get an adjustable. I can't never seem to get the right one. I just use an adjustable one. I know I shouldn't, but that's what I've always done. I just loosen that a little bit, folks. It don't have to be much, and it don't have to be super tight. Hold your brake hub there, and I just loosen it up some. Loosen that one. I'm gonna take a 1/2-inch wrench, loosen that, back it off a little bit. This is your adjuster here, okay? Back it off a little bit, and like I said a minute ago, I'm gonna do this other side. It has the same situation on it, but let me show you. The axle bolt here is it's got this. It's hinged in here, and it locks into this frame, and so that's why it didn't turn. You don't have to hold nothing on the other side because this is ready to go. And we're gonna take this one loose, and I'm gonna show you when you adjust this chain. What you want to try to do is you want to try to work this thing across at the same time. So you want to do like 1, 2, 3, and then I'll go over to the other side and do the same thing. I'm just going to give it the same amount of turns, and then I'll show you a way to look at this to make sure that you've got it the right way. Like I said, all the specifications on these old bikes way different than the new ones. The belt, the tensioner, this is the newer bikes run with a belt today. It's kind of a softer blow on the transmissions and stuff like that, the belts are. They're very dependable. I've never had to put one on a bike in my life. 45,000 miles on that one, belt still looks new. But that'd be real tight. I mean, those belts, you have a 10-pound test that you put on, you push 10 pounds of pressure, and they have to go within 3/8 of an inch or so. And so they're real tight. These don't run like that. They have a different, completely different bearing setup and everything. But it does run tighter than that. You can't measure, I know people would measure the distance on these right here. You can't do that because the other side is different. This bolt's bigger for one thing than the other side of that, so it just doesn't work that way. 1, 2, 3 again. Go over here, do the same thing. 2, 3 again. Now that this belt is this tight, I can show you roughly. Now, here is what does happen to this though. Your brake lever here, which this one is, doesn't seem to have any pressure on it right now, much, but the brake lever, you can feel it dragging a little bit maybe. So what I gotta do is take this lever here and up here and take an adjustment here in a minute and back the adjustment off, because let me show you. You have a manual setup here. Today's brakes on newer motorcycles, fluid, hydraulic brakes, .4 and all that. This is just a manual system. And so when you push the wheel backwards to get the chain in better shape, you're also taking the brake lever like this and moving it forward, you see, because you got more distance between the lever here and your pedal. And so sometimes you have to adjust the brakes anytime you adjust the chain. And so we're gonna look at doing that here, and I can feel this. See the that don't feel like it's got any pressure on it right there. So yeah. So what I want to do, let me check this again. Right there. Let me see if that's snug right there now. What I want to do is check this brake and make sure that it's not dragging a little bit. What I've been amazed by on these old brakes is that if they do begin to drag like that, they will drag forever. I mean, it'll seem like they don't want to just like wear a little bit and release or whatever. You just got to get them adjusted each and every time. And so there's a little bit to this chain stuff, as you can tell by now. When it goes to adjusting the chains and adjusting the primaries, and then of course today we're checking the valves. There can be quite a bit to it. And so what I want to do here is take a look underneath there. Feel this out, and I may just even pull the pin on it. That's part of the disadvantage right now of having bags. Is that the advantage is you got something to put your stuff in. Disadvantage when you're working on the bike. And I don't want to take these bags off because they're a major operation. I got to unbolt them and all that kind of stuff. And I can do this without doing that, really. So. All right. Working away on this thing here. We'll get this done one way or the other. Get this little bit of service work done to it. Pin. Take this pin out of here. See if that makes any difference in the wheel or not. It might not, because it don't feel like it's got a lot of pressure on it, but I mean it could. And you want this brake to be right as you're doing this. So I got that loose now. I can put it back in just a minute. Yeah, see the difference? See how free flowing it is now? So the brake was rubbing just a little bit. I don't want to do much on that adjustment because you need the full amount, but let me show you this chain again. Let's find that tight spot. We might go a little bit more. I got the oiler. The oiler comes off of here and went up and come around and dripped on the chain. I took it off. I'm gonna oil this chain when I get done. I do that from time to time with just regular chain lube because it's just messy. And so I just take care of that one myself. Eventually I'm gonna put a belt over on the other side, the drive belt. They make them now that replaces that chain. And that way you can get rid of the oil part of it. All right, let's tighten her up a little bit more. 1, 2, 3 again. We'll just keep going from side to side, and that way we're keeping it fairly even. And then I'm gonna show you how to check this thing and make sure that you got the wheel running the right way. All right. Now look at this. See how tight that is? Right there, that's too tight. So what you're going to want to do is back that off a little bit. 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and do 3 because by the time I tighten that up, it'll snug up again on me. And I'll just back it back off to where I had it a minute ago. 2, 3. Okay. Now, before I go any further and I tighten everything down and make my adjustments, let me show you this. I want you to come around the camera and look down the chain. I don't know if you can see it or not. I can get a flashlight really quick and kind of show you what you're going to look for on these old motorcycles. The antique motorcycle revival. Here we go. See the chain down through there that way? That helps. Go down and see the long of it. You're looking for that chain to stay straight. See how straight it is right now? What happens if your wheel gets kind of like this? If it gets cocked one way or the other, that chain will have like a bow in it. It'll have a bow left or bow right. What you want to do is get that chain just like this to where it's running straight. And that one really couldn't be any better than that. So now we're going to tighten this up and see how it goes here. Snug the first one up a little bit. These don't have to be real tight. I've been told that people a lot of times they'll tighten them up too much and you break stuff. And believe me, I've been known to break things. So I just try to find some medium somewhere. You don't really have torque specifications on these, but you know, if you're bad like I have been to over torque stuff and break things, then you know you might want to try to pull back a little bit. Now that one can go well. I want to show you this chain again. That's about right. So you want right there on the tight spot, you want just about that much play on it. What you're going to want to do on this is, so you need your this chain and this adjuster back here, you want it to actually go out a turn. Which is hard to do, folks. Let me get these clear. What you want to do is take this thing out a full turn, because you're expanding this lever toward your brake. You just moved your chain back, got your chain in pretty good shape there. Feels about right. And now we're going to want to expand, at least expand it a full turn. There. Let's see how that works. And all I got to do that is move that down, put a pin in it. Let's see. Just like so. There you go. One turn. It's still going to lock up well. I'll put the pin back in it. I'll bolt the pin, goes back in the brake pin. You'll want to do that 100%. I'll bolt the bag back on, but that's how it works, folks. That's how we do the valves on them, check them out. Got the gaskets on there, keep them from leaking. So we end up snugging up the back chain a little bit. The primary chain looked okay. And it looks like the old 45 is ready to go. Maybe in a couple weeks, I may head right back down to Maggie again. Make my third time on the old one. I take it all the way there. It's a fun trip, and it's just fun to come around the corner down there and come into that old the Antique Motorcycle Museum. Really the best antique motorcycle, American-made motorcycles in the world anywhere. I mean, they're phenomenal. If you've not been to Wheels Through Time, folks, you got to go. You don't want to buy a raffle ticket for that 1936 knucklehead. There's really no point in doing that, because I'm a sure win on that one this year. So maybe next year, though, you could go ahead and get your ticket, and you'd stand a chance. But anyway, this is it. Antique Motorcycle Revival, everybody. And we got the 45 ready to go, ready to ride a little bit whenever the rain stops. We'll see you here in a few days.